entire world is facing Trump's tariff tsunami or tariff, tariff war is going on in around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome all of you to today's International Affairs. We have a very distinguished panelist today, Bobby Hajjaj, very outspoken young sensation. He will be talking today about the different world issues, but first let us know from Shamsul Alam Pantha, our International Affairs commentator, what are the things you want to pick for today's discussion, because world is facing tariff typhoon, I call sometimes tariff tsunami.
Thank you, Mr. Kanchan. Very warm welcome once again to Mr. Bobby Hajjaj for being here, and very good afternoon to our viewers. Let me begin with a breaking news. We have the United States of America imposing another additional 25% tariff on India, and it's definitely regarding their decision to be trading with Russia and its crude oil, which has initially it was at 25% for India, and now with another 25% it stands at a 50% tariff. Aside from this, we have the Kremlin and Steve Witkoff's meeting, which went quite well. The comments that were given in the major news articles, it was that it was a very useful and constructive meeting between the two counterparts of US and Russia, and this is definitely to talk towards a ceasefire deal between Ukraine and Russia war that's been going on for more than 3.5 years. And aside from this, Hezbollah calls Lebanese government's decision to disarm non-state group a grave sin. Of course, Prime Minister Nawaf Salam had committed a grave sin by adopting a decision that strips Lebanon of its weapons to resist the Israeli enemy. So these three are the top that I've picked out for today.
Here are some more things in my hand also. Let us join with Norman Flat Barnes from Washington DC. Norman, can you hear us properly? Norman, I can see you. Can you hear us properly? Norman, can you hear us properly? I think there are some audio issues. I will be back to Norman Flat Barnes. Let us come to Bobby Hajjaj. President Trump announces sweeping new US tariffs on 68 countries, not 1, not 2, not 10, not 20, 68 countries, and also the EU from 10% up to 50%, triggering inflation concerns and trade tensions. India, Australia and Brazil are especially impacted.
Right.
Focus is India at this moment in the world news trending. My question is, how will these tariffs reshape global trade dynamics and alliances, because most of the EU member are NATO member as well, allies countries with United States.
Right. Yeah. First and foremost, thank you so much, Mr. Rashid Kanchan, for inviting me to today's discussion. Thank you, Mr. Shamsul Alam, and to my salam and regards to all of the SATV audience who watch this show. So we are in a bit of a complicated situation right now related to tariffs. Obviously, Trump's administration has been warm, hot and cold regarding the tariffs. They've put on high tariffs, then renegotiated, countries in South Asia and Southeast Asia mostly have been able to negotiate a lower rate of tariffs. India has been a different case, even though India has been, and especially there's been a lot of discussion about the Modi-Trump relationship, good friends and whatnot. But this, as Mr. Shamsul Alam pointed out, the new 50% tariff, that's less to do with India, I believe, and more to do with Russia and the ongoing Russia-Ukraine negotiations that Steve Witkoff is a part of and President Trump is pushing. I mean, one of Trump's initial primary and big boastful promises to the American people was that if he comes to power, the Ukraine-Russia war ends. He could do it in 24 hours, that sort of thing. That was one of his initial boastful claims. So I think it still remains an important topic in Trump's domain and one of the important foreign policy issues for him. So, given that this negotiation has started, Witkoff's visiting Putin, and positive news has come out, as Mr. Samsul Alam already pointed out. So the pressure is, there is an additional need for Trump to put pressure on Putin. The oil trade that Putin is doing right now, about 30+% of it is with India. India's purchasing of oil and energy resources from Russia has gone up in the last 3 years since the war, from like under 1% to over 40%. So that's a huge deal. So if 30% of your major revenue source is constricted, and it is going to be constricted because it's going to hit India hard. India, obviously exports a lot of items to the US. We've already heard from the Indian textile, garments, and other consumer goods sectors that they're going to be hit very hard. So that's something that at least initially is going to be a scare. Not so much for Modi, it seems, at least to me right now, but for Putin, that this pressure will ensure that if Putin doesn't play ball with Witkoff, with Trump, then India will have US will keep the pressure up, and India will have no other way, no other path but to cut back on energy purchases. Now, we don't have the numbers yet, obviously, because going from under 1% to 40% of buying cheap energy. Now that has helped the Indian economy a lot as well. I mean, one of the reasons is the last 3 years, and this has been argued, I don't know the facts, I'm not an economist, and even if I were, I probably wouldn't specialize on India. But having said that, the savings that the Indian economy has had has helped Modi's government buffer a lot of the other economic mistakes they've made. So how much they'll be willing to cut down on the oil purchases, how much they will be also pushing Putin, and so this is an interesting dynamics that we'll see mature over the next even I think 48, 72 hours. I think it's going to be very interesting. But I do think that there's a clear effort from Trump's end to reduce or end the Russia-Ukraine war, and that's what this is all about. The rest of the tariffs, this is just about the Indian tariff. The rest of the tariff is a whole different game, which we can talk about, like the EU. On the tariffs that were placed on the European countries, some of the European countries, like initially France and some other countries, were hoping that the EU would band together and fight Trump's tariffs. But it seems that they fell one after another. Germany fell, the UK fell, one after the other. And so the European Union, more or less, has gone with the tariffs. I mean, they've kowtowed to Trump. But BRICS hasn't. Brazil hasn't. China's not gonna. The main wars with China, if you will, the trade wars with China. India is not gonna. I mean, obviously this one's gonna hurt them. So there's this Putin pressure. But BRICS is gonna, hold out, I think. And this is gonna change the dynamics. Your initial question was, global trade, right? This is gonna change the dynamics of global trade. I mean, China's been pushing for a long time. The BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, and everything is geared towards again bringing back the old Silk Route mentality. As China is the center of global trade. US has been the center of global trade for over 100 years now. China is now working, and these tariffs might actually help. Like Western Europe might still go the American way, but Eastern Europe, Asia, all of Asia, Africa, might go the Chinese way. So new dynamics farming will have very interesting things to see over the next couple of years.
And we have to wait.
We have to wait a little, yes.
Mr. Samsul Alam Pantho.
Yes.
There is a relevant question, because Bobby Hajjaj has raised that some countries might choose the other paths. He has indicated. Are there signs of retaliation from the partners or shifts in supply chains? I mean, is America going to face some sort of supply chain problem for its own consumers?
Very lovely, eloquent question. Let me answer by saying, apart from the BRICS nation, there are 68 countries 68 economies that face this tariff from America. And what this will do is those 68 countries or economies may choose to find other partners to have their exporting goods to be sent. The business relationship with America's economy versus the 68 economies will definitely take a toll. From what I know, that the new tariff package is set to take place from 4 p.m. Later today, and it will definitely take a toll on the American markets as well. Aside from this, if you look at our geopolitical arena, Central Asia or Southeast Asia, these tariffs were a significant way of trying to get someone to the negotiating table. We've seen that with various Asian economies, including our very own Bangladesh. And aside from this, we now see how he wanted to initially place a secondary 100% tariff on Russia, and as well as the recent, as we see today, 25% more on India. So it's safe to say that he not only uses this as a means to create more profit generating schemes in America, but it will have an impact in other economies. Let me also give you an example. Initially we've seen how Donald Trump and Bolsonaro share a very nice friendship, the ex-leader of Brazil. But now Lula da Silva's government does not see eye to eye with Donald Trump's administration. And with the 50% tariff, something that might be of significance, I'll read it out. Brazilian coffee is expected to become more expensive for American households as for the looming 50% tariff imposed by America on Brazil. So this is just one example. Later we will find out how many more examples we find from various 68 economies.
Yes, Norman, can you hear me properly right this moment?
Yes, sir. Good morning to the panel.
Good morning, Norman. My first question would be, what are the latest you have at your hand from White House, your president's activities, Congress, Senate, and especially Epstein investigation going on?
Well, first thing, it's 4 a.m. in Washington, D.C., Eastern Standard Time. As we know, the tariffs, the global tariffs went into effect effectively 12:01 Eastern Standard Time today. The significance of that is that this is the first time in 100 years that the U.S. Has seen a tax level like this. We're looking at the highest rate since 1934 in terms of consumers. What I'm talking about is that the consumers, the United States, will feel this. We're looking at an 18% for the U.S. Government and the U.S. people, the consumers. We're looking at an 18% rate hike on everything imported into the United States, effective today. So other countries are going to feel the pinch. We're looking at, Trump mentioned yesterday about semiconductors. Anything 100% tariffs on that. Anything made outside the United States. This is another attempt to bring businesses back. He said, well, if you have semiconductors and you promise us to build them in the United States, promise or make a commitment, we will levy that tariff. So the enticement is to get business back in the United States, entice foreign countries to do business, and have companies built here in the United States so we can improve our economy. On the other front, we are still dealing with the issue with
Mr. Norman, you said one thing which I really clearly heard, that your president is trying to improve the economy of the United States of America. I have a relevant question for Bobby Hajjaj. What might this mean for inflation and consumer prices in Bangladesh or in South Asian regions?
That all depends how this plays out. Again, like as sort of our honorable speaker from the US, Mr. Norman, was pointing out, there is certain pressure within the US against these tariffs. Like, huge shopping is, Amazon.com, amongst others, have already declared that now they're going to show prices on their websites on pre and post tariff prices. So, how much the price of any particular item has been raised because of Trump's tariffs. And this, I think, even from the White House, the signal was that this is, non-patriotic and stuff like that. So, but in the U.S., you do have unlike what we had the last 15 and a half years, you do have freedom of speech and expression. So they can do that. And so people are going to see. So, but I think Trump has a long-term plan, long-term game plan of, sort of changing the dynamics of foreign relations, U.S. vis-a-vis everybody else. But while doing that, and I see, it's important to understand that U.S. Foreign policy is not based on commerce. Like ours is based on, most foreign policy is based on, sovereignty, security, so sort of traditional physical security, and then economic security. There are many other things, but these two are always primary. U.S. foreign policy wasn't based on commerce. Commerce came on its own. U.S. foreign policy was based on defense, because they have had long periods of isolationism, the Monroe Doctrine and whatnot. But once they came out, they still, through the isolationism, the U.S. Foreign policy mechanism realized that U.S. is one of those few countries in the world that can isolate itself to a quite a large extent and still do well, still thrive, not just survive, but thrive. So it was defense that took them everywhere. And because of defense, when they went everywhere, commerce followed. But this commerce is important for everybody else. So if the U.S., Trump's long-term plan might be again, sort of a shift in that original foreign policy. But for the rest of us, short-term goals are very, very important. So once sort of the U.S. market is closing down, it means if we believe that the U.S. market is closing down, if there will be 20%, 30%, 50% tariffs on multiple units on the U.S. markets, then we won't have any choice but to look for other markets. And also, one of the things, one of the weaknesses of our, especially export-oriented economy, has been that we haven't specialized. I mean, sort of our comparative advantage for the last 50 years has been cheap labor. So our two biggest sources of remittance or foreign earnings, is foreign remittance and the garment sector. And both of these we've earned from cheap labor. We've had 40 years plus, to specialize, but we haven't. We haven't gone into value addition. Like, within 15 years or 20 years, Vietnam, Cambodia, some of these countries are going towards value addition. So now there's a pressure on every country, first and foremost, to create new supply chains. So to create new customers and to create those value addition factors. So I think in some way, unbeknownst to Trump and his policymakers, in many ways, they're pushing Asian, African nations, through some short-term economic difficulties, but it'll create short-term economic hardships, but long-term, I think the economies will thrive even more.
When US has to face it.
And yes, US foreign policy alignment will change.
Mr. Shamsul Alam Pantho, I just one relevant question for you. Yesterday I was hearing some debates in Indian Parliament. The Parliament members are blaming Mr. Modi for his weakness in foreign policy, for his foreign ministers, Joy Shankar. They said that you all time said in Parliament and outside Parliament that Trump is your good friend. But why is your position like this, 100% tariff? This is insulting for the 145 crore people of India. They are blaming directly Modi and foreign minister. How do you see this Modi's time is going to be over soon?
Well, he has been the leader of that country or the union for quite some time. If you see in comparison to who we ousted last year exactly, but you asked about how they're going to deal with Donald Trump. Initially, we know that Donald Trump had visited India, Mr. Modi had visited the United States of America, and this was during his first attempt at the presidency, definitely Donald Trump. But right now, we understand how Russia played a role here between the friendship between India and the United States. As we know that Mr. Witkoff had visited Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin, and their meeting was very supportive of and friendly in nature, and that's a very uncommon thing to see as for diplomacy from the Russian side, given that they have been fighting Ukraine for the last 3.5 years. although India is not directly involved with any kind of support or non-alignment with Ukraine, but economically speaking, if you help out a country economically, you are as same as being involved in the war yourself. So America realized this earlier on during the BRICS meeting that happened in Brazil. Mr. Modi had visited several nations in South Africa before leading to Latin America. And as of recent, that friendship has taken a toll. But earlier on today, when I was researching during my free time, I've seen that Narendra Modi's government is now looking for a one-on-one meet with Vladimir Putin. This, of course, comes in as US had already sent its special envoy. India does realize its global position and is trying its level best to stay away from any kind of conflict or aggression from any side.
Do you agree, in a short answer, that India is facing the toughest foreign policy situation right this moment?
Well, yes, it would be a very tough situation for them at this moment, and we know we've earlier touched on this topic how India has lost all of its neighboring countries as well. So this definitely puts them in a bad shape almost 8 months into the year.
And it will impact in India's internal policy. Mr. Norman, a tough question for you, gentlemen. People are saying that Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, I mean BRICS, has been targeted by Donald Trump's tariff tsunami to create dollar stronger. How you going to explain your president's position in this complaint?
Well, your tough question is an impossible question. There's no way I can explain that. There's no way we can explain that. The facts are the facts is that the BRICS are emerging as a powerful economic force. The United States is aware of that, and they are dealing with that by trying to influence countries not to participate and do business with the BRICS. So that is going to be a challenge. I don't see where there's going to be a change. The BRICS is going to continue to grow, and the United States is going to continue to do what they do. So it's a new challenge, but it's doable.
And would you please give us some updates about the Epstein investigation going on in United States?
Yes, there's more pressure again about the Epstein files. The president is now changing his viewpoint on the releasing of the files. He is now convening, having his top level executive Vance work with his administration on finding a solution about how to release this information. The information has to be put out to the public. The people demanding the information, they want to know, what is your relationship with Epstein? The question is, what is President Trump's relationship with that? And they will not stop until they get the answer.
He has a big battle with Washington Journal, Wall Street Journal. He has a big battle. He decided to go for court for money suit, lawsuit against the media. He is fighting with Elon Musk. He is fighting with media houses. He is fighting with BRICS. He is concentrating on Middle East. He is fighting with Russia. Do you think in 8 months he is moving so fast, Mr. Norman?
Yes, the administration is moving at a phenomenal rate. Unfortunately, you're trying to do everything in a short period of time. As we know, it can't be done in a short period of time. They're learning, there'll be a lot of learning what's going on. They need to learn what the job is, what the needs are, and what you can and cannot do. A lot of things that's happening right now being put into place will be challenged by the courts, and they will be turned back. So right now, there's a one-person party that is putting out these activities and tariffs and all this stuff. I suspect in the future it will be challenged, and most of these things will be overturned.
Thank you, Norman. Stay with us. We'll be coming back. When I come back, I will too. I have a question to Bobby Hajjaj. See, America is following Bangladesh. They started one-man show. What we have been experienced many years. Bobby Hajjaj, how do you see America is following us?
Well, I mean, but you see, what happens with American presidents is there's a maximum of 2 terms. So the first term, presidents are a bit more cautious because they want to get elected a second term. But whatever their core ideologies are, they get expressed in the second term. And Trump is not a normal president. This is probably, I believe it's only the second time in American history that somebody has been president, lost the next election, and then won the third election. So Trump isn't a regular case, run-of-the-mill case. And I think over the last 5 years, 4 years when Trump wasn't in the White House, I think his core ideologies, his group's core ideologies were further strengthened. And I think there's been a lot of planning and whatnot, good or bad, I don't know, but I think there's been a lot of planning on what they want to achieve in these 4 years. And I think that's why Trump is running at this breakneck speed. Because I think, as some people have, U.S. Policy discussants and experts have pointed out that this whole tariff plan is part of a bigger, ideological stance where Trump or Trump supporters, they might want to change again the foreign policy structure, if you will, as it stands in the United States. And so it's, I mean, even though the rhetoric is bring back jobs to the U.S., which is not going to happen through these tariffs, because the U.S. actually specializes in different sorts of higher end service sector and whatnot sort of jobs, which are all in the U.S. So U.S. is not going to bring back manufacturing. That's just not going to happen. And I don't think the White House team or Trump's economic team and so on and so forth, they are not aware of these base realities. But it's just that the narrative they've used to get the backing of their constituents, the people, the voters, was that they're going to bring back these sort of manufacturing and whatnot jobs to the U.S. That's not going to happen, but it's going to pivot. So let's see. I mean, but I don't think Trump is playing a dictator, or rather Trump is becoming a dictator. I don't think the American institutional structure will ever allow that, or at least as we stand in the near future, that will be allowed. But Trump is a populist. He is a populist, and in that sense, he is using populist sensations and whatnot to get his way. But that's also because, again, there's been a lot of popular support for him. I mean, the U.S. Constituents, the electorate, if you will, they're tired of the same old, politics that was being played by both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. I mean, Trump used to be a supporter of the Democratic Party, and then once he wanted to run for president, then the Republican, ticket became the more attractive ticket, and one he could more easily, get. So I think we have a lot to see, but I don't think Bangladesh was a whole different case. We were a complete and utter dictatorship. I mean, we had gone from absolute authoritarianism and treading towards totalitarianism. Yeah. Trump is just populism.
Yeah, we'll definitely discuss it after the break. As Norman has a limitation of time, I want to take his last question. The Washington Post is saying the approval rate of Donald Trump has become below than 37% till yesterday. Do you think still the white collar people or evangelicals support to Trump is still in that same position, Mr. Norman? This will be last question for you for today.
Yes, this is a very intriguing question. And I'm going to respond. My response is this. It's very unfortunate that as you say, the white collar or the social elite, I'm going to say the top 1 to 3%. They are the people with the wealth and the means. They can absorb this shock, this change, these increases, all these things. They have the means to do that. But the people who put them in, the blue collar people who put them in there, the other 97% is suffering. They're losing jobs. Small businesses are forced to shut down. You're going into your pocket now, you're spending more money. They say, well, I didn't bargain for this. You know, I want to change, I want a better America, I want to make things great again, but it looks like it's greater for the few and suffering for the many. So the situation is coming people are looking at this thing and their trust issues are coming up now. That's one of the things with the Epstein cases, they're looking at the trust issue. You say one thing, you do another thing. So what is really going on? Are you really for us or you're for yourself? So that is the issue going on right now. We have trust issues.
So according to Norman, we understand President Trump is not trying to make America great again. He is trying to make himself great again. Norman, thank you very much. We are going for a break. We'll be coming soon.
সারা দেশে লাখো মানুষের কঠোর কর্মতৎপরতা ও নিষ্ঠায় এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন 16 কোটি মানুষের হাতের নাগালে। দীর্ঘ 30 বছর ধরে বিশ্বস্ততা ও দ্রুততার সাথে সেবা দেওয়ায় গ্রাহক সেবায় এখন শীর্ষে। বাংলাদেশে গ্রাহক সেবার সাফল্যের পর এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন বিশ্ব বাণিজ্য কেন্দ্র সিঙ্গাপুরে। আপনার যে কোনো পণ্য সিঙ্গাপুর থেকে বাংলাদেশে বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন। এসএ পরিবহন প্রাইভেট লিমিটেড, লজিস্টিক্স পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, 22 রবার্টস লেন, সিঙ্গাপুর 218302। ফোন 0065 629 24900। বাংলাদেশ থেকে সিঙ্গাপুরে পণ্য বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন ঢাকা সহ দেশের যে কোনো 80টি শাখা কেন্দ্রে। এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, আপনার সেবা সব সময়।
Welcome, Grand Palace Hotel, Dhaka. A majestic lobby blending timeless elegance with modern design. Experience 5-star comfort in suites and rooms. Sophisticated fine dining restaurant. Crystal clear swimming pool for ultimate relaxation. Modern gym and serene spa for well-being. Perfect venue for corporate events, weddings and parties. Seamless and secured. Elegant and eye-catching design. Indulge, relax, discover the first 5-star chain hotels in Bangladesh. Grand Palace Hotel Dhaka, 22 Kakrail, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Welcome to Grand Club at Mirpur 10, Dhaka. Elegant spa and wellness facility for ladies and gents. Play pool and snooker.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let us look at the Gaza Defense humanitarian crisis. As you know, an 8-truck accident kills 20 near in Nusayrat refugee camp in Gaza amid growing depression, because people are being called to collect the food and they are under bombing. Is it a new kind of killing innocent women, children and human?
I mean, whenever we speak about Gaza, whenever Gaza comes up, nothing really makes sense. The brutality in Gaza that we have seen is not comparable to anything else during our lifetimes. I mean, we've heard of, pogroms in Soviet Russia, Pol Pot's regime in Cambodia, but even then those had limited time periods, but Gaza's been unimaginably brutal. I mean, in every sense of the word, there's been genocide in Gaza for the last few years. And probably even before that, it was, sort of many, many instances. But the last few years, I mean, they've razed almost all of Gaza to the ground. I mean, because the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, they feared, urban warfare. Because urban warfare is difficult. I mean, we've seen in the Battle of Stalingrad and whatnot, or even, like in many, in the Yugoslav wars and whatnot, or even in the current Ukraine war, how difficult urban warfare is. So the idea of solution to the difficulties of urban warfare was just demolishing all of that urbanity. So every sort of town, every building has been razed to the ground. So Gaza ceases to exist as a proper place of habitation. And I mean, thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands have been killed, I mean, without any regard to any moral qualm, to any sort of international law, to anything. And yet we see the world silent. We can, I mean, from where we stand in Bangladesh, there's not much we can do. We don't have trade with Israel. We don't have any other sort of, and we're too far away to be, of any help to the silent martyrs of Gaza. But the rest of the world, especially, I mean, raising their voices against the US. I mean, the European Union, they talk about morality, they talk about, justice, rules-based world, and they stand silent. Nobody moves anything. The Middle East, I mean, all the Islamic countries, I mean, again, Iran has fought its battles, and it has, it has its wounds. It's licking its wounds right now. Iraq has been destabilized so badly that Iraq ceases to be a truly functioning state over the last decade or so. Look at Syria. So I think, I mean, it was, I mean, from 95 onwards, a concerted effort on the part of Netanyahu and his party. And Netanyahu since 95 has been, for a majority of the period, the prime minister of Israel. So there's been a concerted effort from their end that American foreign policy goes a certain way, where the Middle East is so poor, been so destabilized that if and when this sort of a genocidal attack happens, that sort of all of Israeli borders, you just wipe out the existence of a Palestine, wipe out the existence of any Palestinians, as in sort of large-scale genocide, and that's what has happened. So the only couple of countries that could, I mean, Jordan, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, they are focused more on their own economies or on their own security. And so even though sometimes Saudi Arabia will raise a voice and say, this shouldn't happen, that shouldn't happen, but they're dealing with, the Saudi regime is dealing with Israel.
Just formalities.
Yes, it is just a formality. It is just a soundbite, no more than a soundbite. Because I find it very hard to believe that even if the Middle East, if the countries in the Middle East see this as an important issue and bond over this issue, because you see, what people keep on forgetting is, sort of that old dialogue that first they came for the communists and I didn't stop them, then they came for so and so. And now the point is, Israel is going to wipe out Palestine. That has more or less already happened. But Israel sees the relationship, the state of Israel, at least, Zionists, they see the relationship between Jews and Muslims as a clash of, as a civilizational clash, if you will, which, I know the US foreign policy made this a civilization clash in the 90s and whatnot, but that's not what I'm talking about. But Zionists believe their primary enemies are Muslims, not Palestinians, Muslims. Palestinians is for the land, it's Muslims. So if Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Egypt, everybody keeps on forgetting this crucial point that once the Zionists have all of, they've taken Palestine, they've destabilized the Middle East, what's the next step? The next step is to destabilize their states as well, because again, for Zionists who are running Israel, this is a civilizational conflict. So it's me or you. It's not a non-zero sum game where we can both exist together, so on and so forth. And again, I'm not talking about Jews here, I'm talking about Zionists. And Zionists are running Israel. Whatever is happening in Palestine, the genocide and whatnot, Zionists are responsible for this, not all Jews. So till the countries in the Middle East get a grasp of this basic ideological truth, nobody's going to stand against Israel. And if they don't get a grasp of this basic ideological truth, very soon their existence will be as much in question as is Palestine's today.
Very good explanation, and I understand you are very upset on the activities of the Middle East leaders, Arab leaders. I want to come to our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Pantho. If we see the meeting between two leaders of United States and Israel, we see the body language and the voice of Israeli Prime Minister is higher than the US President. If we see his interviews, we see he has a huge control on Washington. Who is more powerful world leaders, you think?
Well, definitely America would love to project its power over all the economies of the globe. But you see, when Benjamin Netanyahu, someone who is convicted by the International Criminal Court, he had visited the White House in Washington. And you see people like Zoran Mamdani from New York had commented saying this was not required or needed and this tarnished the name of America. He opposed it, and how someone who is a convict can visit the White House is a matter of question to people like Zoran Mamdani. But I was speaking out on what Mr. Hajjaj was saying. You look at history today, what we see is a humanitarian disaster in Gaza, probably the greatest in this century. But exactly 1 century ago, more or less at the helm of the end of the World War II, we study history and we understand how the concentration camp at Auschwitz was held. Millions of Jews were killed by gas chambers, by the Hitler's Reich. So something similar that has now taken place in Gaza. It's a very uncanny resemblance, but why I say this is that ever since the World War II has ended in 1948, they settled in now what they call Israel, but that was called back then the State of Palestine. And of course, Zionism has to be defeated, and it comes back from a civilizational route, which they would not look forward to coexist. More or less, they would want so that for the other to not exist. That's where their ideology stems from. And at this moment, we have 60,000 plus casualties, and there's no ending to this war. Even after multiple first world countries are coming out in condemnation and also in recognition of Palestine as well.
Do you see any hope for two-state solution has been signed by the Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat under the negotiation of Bill Clinton? Because recently we have seen some of the countries started to consider Palestine as a sovereign state.
They should have done that quite some long ago, but they were on the wrong side of history. Now that the conscience of all the world's major leaders are questioned, now they come out in recognition of Palestine. It's very unconventional, if I would comment on that matter. And especially speaking here, Western leaders often say we condemn this heinous aggravation into the Palestinian people, but that's almost about it. I don't see any country or a US aircraft carrier coming into the Bay of Gaza and saying, you end this naval blockade at once. I don't see a US carrier trying to do that, more or less any other US rival to come and do that. So definitely there's been a naval blockade of Gaza ever since for the last 25 years. And what that has done is it had made sure that the Israeli Defense Forces can continue their operation of Gaza as well, and you have Greta Thunberg, a climate activist, who tried her level best to break this naval blockade, and later she was sent back to her home country and deported after the Israeli military had taken seizure of the Freedom Flotilla as well.
Sir, let me ask Bobby Hajjaj one question. Very simple. How should the international community or the media respond to urgent issues like healthocide? Healthocide. I mean, healthocide is a new word used by Washington Post. There is nothing left for health, like genocide, like homicide, healthocide, escalating in conflict the zones.
Yeah, I mean, again, the world, it seems, I mean, we have come to a point in our civilization where technology has surpassed anything we could have ever imagined before. And, sort of, if you will, let's go back to Karl Marx now, a century and a half ago. Karl Marx, sort of many of his ideas, historical materialism and whatnot, might not have worked out the way he imagined them. But he did imagine a world where technology matures where it has today, and humanity achieves some sort of an utopia. Because you see, I mean, we have the resources today that nobody anywhere, be that in the African savannah or wherever, nobody has to go hungry. Everybody can have, sort of the minimum necessities fulfilled for life, and not just for life, but for a reasonably good life. So, but instead of doing that, we have, sort of Elon Musk's who are worth $200 billion plus. I mean, you go to, sort of Mumbai, and you see, a $2 billion plus home of Mukesh Ambani's family, the Antilla, and next to that you have slums. I mean, right next to. I mean, you see because I've seen photos. I mean, I've never visited Mukesh Ambani's house, but I do have, sort of friends who are friends with them and their neighbors. So I have seen photos from some of Mukesh Ambani's, sort of the Antilla, that building's balconies and what are windows, which actually shows slums, which is, sort of the predicament that we're in this world. And so, there was a point in time a few thousand years ago when torture itself was a science. Part of military science, torture itself was a science. So how to inflict pain upon somebody, like things like the Raging Bull and, the Iron Maiden and so on and so forth, how to inflict pain on somebody. But I believe in this age of technology where Marx's utopia could actually have been achieved, we are seeing rather more more inimical creations, machinations that are going into production of pain, but at a massive scale. Genocide and things like, your healthocide and whatnot that you're pointing out, where, in places like Gaza, where, sort of, first and foremost, on one end, you're just killing people outright, and then those that are barely alive, you're depriving them of food. And sometimes when you are providing them with food, you are putting in some sort of strange drugs and whatnot into, I mean, which has been already proven by multiple, I mean, Al Jazeera and other, sort of journalists, that they have been putting, sort of some sorts of, sort of pills and medications, mixing it with the sort of, if you will, sacks of flour and wheat and whatnot. So the bare minimum that is, sort of reaching these starving masses are still being inundated with stuff that would kill them eventually. So this level of infliction of pain, I think, is a new low for humanity. And this is being done, unfortunately, under the watch of one superpower. Because we are, sort of, I mean, we are in a unipolar world still. China's rising, Russia's trying to fight, but still it's an America-led unipolar world. And it is, while this huge democracy, the United States of America, unilaterally polices the world, it is during this particular time that the most inhumane infliction of pain to the masses is being meted out. This is going to be recorded in history for the future.
So time is over, but before ending the show, I just want to do a very small question. You have to answer in 30 seconds. What you see, any hope in coming days in Bangladesh, because country is heading into a democracy?
Oh, I see. I am very, very hopeful for Bangladesh. I mean, I was sad and, sort of for many other places, but I'm very, very hopeful for Bangladesh. I mean, the election date more or less has been announced. Day before yesterday, the Honorable Chief Advisor announced the election date, and political parties have already started working. I mean, the BNP-led coalition, we have all started working on, sort of who our candidates are going to be and how. Other parties that have even, sort of opposed this declaration of election, Jamaat-e-Islami, Islami Andolon and NCP, I don't consider them a party really, but anyway, these parties, even them who have opposed, they've also started work internally, preparing for the election. So I think once election preparation, which has already started, once this gets some momentum, everything else is just incidental. So February elections, then nation building.
Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you gentlemen. You have done a very good contribution to today's shows. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for patient watching. We'll see you next time.